My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 7 years, I'd been living a double life. To my family, I was the disappointment, the daughter who never amounted to anything, the one who worked some vague computer job they didn't understand and couldn't be bothered to ask about. While my brother Marcus bought a boat and took them on cruise vacations, while my sister Jennifer threw expensive dinner parties, I was the one who showed up to family events in jeans and drove a 10-year-old Honda Civic. "Sarah's just getting by," Mom would say with that sad, pitying tone that made my stomach turn. What they didn't know, what they never bothered to discover, was that I was a senior data architect at a Fortune 500 tech company, pulling in a base salary of $240,000 a year, plus annual bonuses that sometimes exceeded six figures. But more than that, I was their invisible safety net. It started small 7 years ago, right after I got my first major promotion. Dad's construction business hit a rough patch. Some client defaulted on a big project, and suddenly they were 3 months behind on the mortgage. I was 26, finally making real money, and when I saw the foreclosure notice on the kitchen counter during a Sunday dinner, something in me just acted. I called the bank the next day, set up an anonymous payment arrangement, paid off the arrears, $8 for 100, and arranged to cover the monthly payments going forward. Just until Dad's business recovered, I told myself. Just temporarily. The mortgage was $2,800 a month. I paid it for 84 consecutive months. Dad's business did recover. Within 6 months, actually. He landed a major commercial contract and was doing better than ever. But he never mentioned the mortgage crisis again. Never wondered how they'd suddenly gotten back on track. Mom just said they'd worked something out with the bank. And that was that. I kept paying. Because I discovered something that made my blood run cold. They hadn't been making any payments at all. Not to the bank. Not to utilities. Not to their car loans. Nothing. Every month, I watched the automatic transfers leave my account. $2,800 for the mortgage. $450 for utilities. $780 for Mom's car payment. $920 for Dad's truck. And every month, I checked their social media and saw Dad posting about his successful business, Mom sharing photos from spa days with her sisters, both of them living like everything was fine, like they were successful, self-sufficient adults. Meanwhile, I was living in a modest apartment, driving my old car, wearing clothes from Target and quietly hemorrhaging money to keep their lifestyle afloat. Why doesn't Sarah ever go anywhere nice? Aunt Linda asked at a Christmas party 3 years ago. She's not good with money, Mom said sadly. Never has been. I was sitting right there. But the real knife in the gut came when I discovered the credit cards. It was year 4 of my secret financial support. I was applying for a mortgage of my own, finally ready to buy a small condo, when the loan officer frowned at my credit report. "There's some unusual activity here," he said. "Multiple credit cards with high balances. Are you aware of these?" I wasn't. 5 credit cards. All opened in my name. All maxed out. Total balance, $67,000. The addresses on the accounts led back to my parent house. The purchases, luxury furniture, a boat motor, jewelry, expensive dinners, were things I'd seen in my parents' home and on my mother's wrist. They'd stolen my identity. Not borrowed. Not helped themselves in some misguided family emergency. They'd deliberately opened credit cards in my name, maxed them out, and never made a single payment. My credit score had dropped 180 points. The mortgage application was denied. I hired a private investigator that week. Then a forensic accountant. I needed to know everything. What they found destroyed the last shred of respect I had for the people who raised me. While my family saw me as their unsuccessful, struggling daughter, I was quietly building an empire of competence and strategic planning. The private investigator, Marcus Chun from Sentinel Investigations, was thorough. Over 6 weeks, he documented everything. Every fraudulent credit card, every forged signature, every purchase made in my name. But he found more than just the credit cards. There were 2 car loans. Taken out online using my information, my social security number, my forged signature on digital documents. Total, $54,000. There was a personal loan from an online lender. $28,000 at a predatory interest rate, also in my name, used to renovate their kitchen. There was even a medical credit line, $40,000, opened at a plastic surgery center for my mother's facelift and my sister's breast augmentation. Total fraudulent debt in my name, $189,000. This is identity theft, Marcus said, sliding the compiled report across the table. This is federal crime. You could press charges. Not yet, I said. I wasn't interested in revenge. Not then. I was interested in documentation, in building an airtight case, in making sure that when the moment came, and I knew it would come, I would have every piece of evidence I needed. The forensic accountant, Patricia Goldstein, worked in parallel. Her job was different: document every dollar I'd actually given them. The mortgage payments, $235,200 over 7 years. The utility payments, $37,800. The car payments, $142,800. One-time bailouts for emergencies, $89,000. Dad's business crisis that turned out to be gambling debts. Mom's medical emergency that was actually credit card bills. Marcus's investment opportunity that was a down payment on his boat. Additional support, $47,000. Property taxes they forgot to pay. Insurance premiums.
Huafe.
Jennifer's wedding contribution that I was told was expected from family. Medical bills I'd paid directly, $68,200. Dad's back surgery. Mom's dental work. Various family emergencies. The forensic accountant's total, $720,000 in direct financial support over 7 years. Patricia looked at me with something like, awe. You're 33 years old, and you've given your family $750,000. They don't know, I said. How is that possible? They never asked where the money came from. They just assumed they were taking care of everything themselves. Meanwhile, my career was thriving. I'd been promoted twice more. I was now leading a team of 47 people, managing a department with a $15 million annual budget, and consulting on projects that would reshape our entire industry. Forbes had reached out for an interview for their 30 Under 30 retrospective. I'd been on the list at 28. Tech conferences flew me first class to speak on panels. Recruiters contacted me weekly with offers that started at $350,000 base salary. And my family thought I worked some computer thing and struggled to make ends meet. Because I let them think it. I'd learned early on that the moment you showed success in my family, you became an ATM. When Marcus bought his boat, Dad asked him for $50,000 for a business investment within a week. When Jennifer got promoted to regional manager, Mom suddenly needed $15,000 for home repairs. But me? I dressed down, drove an old car, lived modestly, and quietly funded their entire existence while they pitied me. I wasn't hiding. I was watching. Every dismissive comment, every pitying look, every time they bragged about how self-sufficient they were while my automatic transfers kept their lights on. I was collecting evidence of who they really were. The barbecue happened on a Saturday in June. Dad was celebrating landing a major contract, a $2 million commercial build that he'd been pursuing for months. He'd invited his business partners, their families, some old friends. The backyard was full of people drinking beer and eating expensive catered food. I'd driven 3 hours to be there because Mom had specifically asked me to come. It's important to your father, she'd said. Family should be there for these moments. I showed up in jeans and a plain t-shirt, parked my Honda between Marcus's new Tesla and Jennifer's Mercedes SUV. Dad was holding court by the grill, telling the story of how he'd won the contract. Persistence, he was saying. Hard work. That's what success takes. That's what I've always taught my kids. I grabbed a beer and stood near the edge of the patio, watching. Marcus learned it, Dad continued, gesturing to my brother, who beamed. Built a successful investment portfolio. Jennifer, too, regional manager at 31. But Sarah? He trailed off, and several people glanced my way. Sarah's still finding her way. Mom jumped in, her voice dripping with that familiar pity. She's got a little computer job. It's steady, but nothing special. We keep hoping she'll find her footing. One of Dad's partners, a man named Robert Chen, looked at me curiously. What kind of computer work? Data stuff, I said with a shrug. Pretty boring. Sarah's never been ambitious like her siblings, Dad said, and several people nodded sympathetically. I took a long drink of my beer. That's when Dad started telling the freeloader story. The thing about raising kids, he said to his business partners, his voice carrying across the yard, is you never know how they'll turn out. We gave all three of them the same opportunities, the same values, the same foundation. He gestured to Marcus and Jennifer. Two of them took it and ran. Built successful lives. Made us proud. Then he looked at me. And then there's Sarah. We raised a freeloader. Someone who just never contributed. Never gave back. Just takes and expects the family to carry her. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We've tried, she said to the women gathered around her. We've offered to help her get on her feet. But she's never been good with money. Never made good choices. The pity in their eyes made my skin crawl. Jennifer, standing near the dessert table with her husband, smirked. It's sad, really. At some point, you have to take responsibility for your own life. Marcus nodded sagely. I've tried to give her financial advice. She doesn't listen. I set down my beer. I walked through the backyard, past the pitying stares, past my parents who were still accepting sympathetic words from their friends about their difficult daughter. I walked to my car. I opened the trunk. And I pulled out the folder I'd been carrying for 2 months, waiting for exactly this moment. I'd known this day was coming. Not the specific day, not the exact moment, but I'd known that eventually the cognitive dissonance would become too much. Eventually, they'd say something so brazenly false, so completely detached from reality, that I'd have to act. The folder contained 2 complete reports. Report 1. Patricia Goldstein's Forensic Accounting Analysis. Every wire transfer. Every payment. Every bill I'd covered. 7 years of financial documentation, all tied back to my bank accounts, all traceable, all provable. Color-coded spreadsheets. Bank statements. Mortgage payment histories. Utility records. Car loan documentation. $720,000 in black and white. Report 2. Marcus Chen's private investigation findings. Every fraudulent credit card application. Every forged signature, verified by handwriting experts. Every purchase made in my name. Every loan taken out using my identity. $189,000 in criminal fraud. With annotations explaining each federal law violated and recommended charges. I'd also brought something else. Witness testimony. My attorney, David Park, had helped me secure sworn statements from bank representatives, credit card companies, and loan officers. Statements confirming that accounts had been opened remotely, that I'd never authorized them, that the IP addresses and locations tied back to my parents' home. Everything was documented. Everything was provable. Everything was irrefutable. I'd spent $35,000 on the investigation and documentation. Best money I'd ever spent. But more than that, I'd prepared for the aftermath. I'd already canceled all the automatic payments. The final transfers had gone through 3 days ago. After this weekend, my parents would be financially on their own for the first time in 7 years. I'd opened new bank accounts they couldn't access. Changed all my passwords. Put fraud alerts on my credit. Secured everything. I'd also reached out to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Submitted a preliminary report. They were already investigating. Already building their own case. They were just waiting for my signal to move forward. And I'd brought reinforcements. Patricia Goldstein was in her car 2 blocks away, waiting for my text. Marcus Chen was in a coffee shop across the street, also waiting. David Park, my attorney, was on standby for a conference call. I wasn't hiding anymore. I wasn't watching silently anymore. I was about to show my family exactly who they'd been stealing from for 7 years. I walked back into the barbecue carrying the folder. The conversation had moved on. Dad was talking about his new contract again. Mom was showing off photos from their recent weekend trip to Napa Valley, a trip I'd indirectly funded by paying their mortgage so they could afford luxuries. I walked straight to the center of the patio. "Excuse me," I said loudly. "I have something to say." The conversations died. Everyone turned to look at me. Dad frowned. "Sarah, not now. This is a celebration." "I know," I said. "That's exactly why now is perfect." I opened the folder and pulled out the first document, the summary page from Patricia's report. "You just told everyone that I'm a freeloader, that I never contribute, that I take from this family." "Sarah," Mom started. "I want to correct the record," I continued, "with documentation." I held up the first page. "This is a forensic accounting report covering the last 7 years. It details every financial transaction I've made on behalf of this family." Dad's face reddened. "This is not the time." "The mortgage on this house," I said, my voice clear and steady. 2847 Maple Drive. "Do you want to know who's been paying it for the last 7 years?" Mom's face went white. "The monthly payment is $2,800. That's $33,600 per year. Over 7 years, 84 months, that's $235,200. I pulled out the bank transfer records. Every payment originated from my account, routed through an anonymous payment service, but all traceable back to me. I set the papers on the patio table. Several of Dad's business partners leaned in to look. "The utilities," I continued, pulling out more documentation. "Electric, gas, water, internet. You know that autopay you set up, Mom? It's been pulling from my account for 7 years. Total, $37,800. Mom started crying, but they weren't tears of shame. They were tears of panic. "Dad's truck," I said. "The Ford F-250 you're so proud of. Monthly payment, $920. Total paid over 7 years, $77,280. From my account." "Sarah, stop this," Dad said, his voice shaking. "Mom's Lexus. Monthly payment, $780. Total, $65,520. Also from my account." I spread the documents across the table like a poker hand. Bank statements, wire transfer receipts, payment histories, all highlighted, all annotated, all irrefutable. "The property taxes you forgot to pay in 2019? $4,200. I paid them. The homeowner's insurance that lapsed in 2021? $2,800 annually. I've been paying it. The HOA fees that were going to put a lien on the house? $3,600. Me again." Marcus had gone pale. Jennifer was staring at the papers, her mouth open. "And then there are the emergencies," I said. "Dad's business crisis in 2018 that required $35,000. The medical emergency in 2019 that needed $22,000. Marcus's investment opportunity that required $18,000. Jennifer's wedding contribution of $14,000. I pulled out Patricia's summary sheet, the one with the grand total in bold red numbers. Total financial support provided to this family over 7 years, $720,000. $720,000. The backyard was silent except for Mom's crying. "So, when you tell your friends that you raised a freeloader," I said, looking directly at Dad, "I want to make sure everyone understands who's actually been freeloading." That's when I texted Patricia. She arrived 3 minutes later, carrying her briefcase and wearing a professional suit that immediately commanded attention. "This is Patricia Goldstein," I said. "She's a forensic accountant. She prepared this report. Patricia, would you mind summarizing your findings?" Patricia smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. "Of course." Over a 7-year period, Ms. Mitchell provided direct financial support totaling $720,000 to her family. This includes mortgage payments, utility payments, vehicle loans, insurance, property taxes, and various emergency bailouts. Every payment is documented and verifiable. She pulled out a thick binder and set it on the table. This report includes bank statements, wire transfer records, payment histories from mortgage companies, utility providers, and auto loan services. Everything is cross-referenced and authenticated.
Dad tried to speak.
We didn't know. You didn't ask, I said. You never wondered where the money came from. You just assumed you were handling everything yourselves. But that's not all, Patricia said, and her voice turned cold. During the course of my investigation, I discovered additional financial irregularities, which is why I brought in a colleague. That's when I texted Marcus Chin. He arrived 2 minutes later, and he didn't come alone. He brought 2 FBI agents. The backyard erupted in whispers and gasps. This is Marcus Chen from Sentinel Investigations, I said. And these are Special Agents Williams and Rodriguez from the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. Mom collapsed into a chair. Mr. Chen, would you mind presenting your findings? Marcus opened his folder. Over the course of a 6-week investigation, I documented multiple instances of identity theft and financial fraud perpetrated against Ms. Mitchell. He laid out the evidence like a prosecutor. 5 credit cards opened in Ms. Mitchell's name without her knowledge or consent. Total fraudulent charges, $67,000. The applications were submitted online from this address. He pointed at the house. The purchases were delivered here. The cards are currently in possession of Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell. Dad's face was gray. 2 auto loans, total $54,000, also opened fraudulently in Ms. Mitchell's name. 1 for a boat motor, 1 for a motorcycle. Both currently in the possession of Marcus Mitchell. He nodded at my brother, who looked like he might vomit. 1 personal loan, $28,000, used to renovate the kitchen at this address. And 1 medical credit line, $40,000, used for cosmetic procedures for Mrs. Mitchell and Jennifer Mitchell. He pulled out the final summary. Total fraudulent debt created in Ms. Mitchell's name, $189,000. Every signature was forged. Every application was submitted without consent. This constitutes multiple counts of identity theft, fraud, and forgery under federal law. Special Agent Williams stepped forward. We've been investigating this case for 3 weeks, she said. We verified Mr. Chen's findings independently. We have warrants being prepared for the arrest of Michael and Diane Mitchell on charges of identity theft, wire fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Mom screamed. Sarah, please. We're your parents. You destroyed my credit, I said, my voice shaking now. I couldn't buy a home because of what you did. My credit score dropped 180 points. I've been denied loans, denied opportunities, because you stole my identity to fund your lifestyle. We'll pay it back, Dad pleaded. We'll make it right. With what money? I asked. Starting Monday, you'll be making your own mortgage payment for the first time in 7 years. Your own utility payments. Your own car payments. Everything. The realization hit him like a truck. You've been living on $720,000 of my money, I said, while telling everyone I was a freeloader, while pitying me, while accepting congratulations for your success that I was funding. I turned to the guests, Dad's business partners, the family friends, everyone who'd heard him call me a freeloader. I make $290,000 a year as a senior data architect. I manage a department of 47 people with a $15 million budget. I was on Forbes' 30 under 30 list. I've spoken at international tech conferences. I've been offered positions at Google, Amazon, and Microsoft. I looked at my father. I'm not the failure in this family. I'm the only one who is actually successful. You were just living off my success and pretending it was yours. Special Agent Rodriguez stepped forward. Mr. and Mrs. Mitchell, you need to come with us. We have some questions at the field office. Sarah, please. Mom reached for me. Don't do this to us. I didn't do this to you, I said. You did this to yourselves. For 7 years, you could have asked where the money came from. You could have wondered how your mortgage was suddenly current, how your bills were getting paid. You could have questioned why you were suddenly flush with cash. I picked up the folders. But you didn't. Because you didn't care. You just wanted the money. And you wanted to feel superior to me while taking it. Dad lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't let them arrest us. We're your parents. You stole $189,000 from me, I said. You destroyed my credit. You forged my signature. You committed federal crimes. Security, hired by Patricia as a precaution, moved in to separate Dad from me. The forensic report, the investigative findings, and all evidence have been submitted to the FBI and the state attorney's office, Patricia said. There's also a civil lawsuit being filed Monday morning for recovery of the fraudulent debt plus damages. Jennifer started screaming. You're destroying this family. No, I said, looking at her. I'm just not funding it anymore. There's a difference. I turned to Special Agent Williams. I'm pressing full charges. Criminal and civil. Understood, Ms. Mitchell. We'll be in touch. As the agents led my parents toward their car, Mom turned back one more time. How could you do this to us? After everything we've done for you? I almost laughed. Everything you've done for me? You raised me. That was your job as parents. But for the last 7 years, I've been raising you. I've been the parent. I've been the responsible one. I've been keeping this family afloat. I held up the forensic report one more time. $720,000. That's what I did for you, while you called me a freeloader. The barbecue cleared out in 15 minutes. Dad's business partners left without saying goodbye. The family friends scattered. Even Marcus and Jennifer disappeared quickly, Jennifer crying about how I'd ruined everything, and Marcus silent and pale. I stood in the backyard alone with Patricia, Marcus Chun, and my attorney David, who'd arrived toward the end of the confrontation. What happens now? I asked. David pulled out his tablet. Criminal charges are being filed. Your parents will be arraigned within 48 hours. With this level of documentation, the prosecution's case is airtight. They're looking at 3 to 7 years in federal prison. Civil case. We're filing Monday for full recovery of the $189,000 in fraudulent debt, plus damages for credit repair, emotional distress, and legal fees. We're also filing liens against their property and assets to secure payment. Patricia added, their first mortgage payment is due in 15 days. The utilities will start billing them directly next week. The car payments are due in 3 weeks. Without your support, they're looking at $7,200 in monthly expenses they haven't been paying. Can they afford it? I asked. Not even close, Patricia said. Your father's business grosses about $400,000 annually, but after expenses, he nets maybe $85,000. Your mother doesn't work. They've been living well beyond their means, subsidized entirely by you. Marcus Chin closed his folder. They'll likely have to sell the house to pay the debts. Bankruptcy is probable within 6 months. I nodded. I felt numb. My phone started ringing. It was my Aunt Linda. I didn't answer. It rang 17 more times over the next hour. Aunt Linda, Uncle John, cousins, family friends, everyone who'd been at the barbecue, everyone who'd heard my father call me a freeloader, everyone who'd pitied me. I didn't answer any of them. 3 months later, I sat in my new condo, the one I'd finally been able to purchase after the fraudulent accounts were removed from my credit report, and watched the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. The criminal trial had been quick. With the level of documentation I'd provided, my parents both took plea deals. Dad got 4 years in federal prison. Mom got 3. They'd be eligible for parole after serving 2/3 of their sentences. The civil judgment had been even swifter. The court awarded me $189,000 in fraudulent debt recovery, plus $75,000 in damages, plus $48,000 in legal fees. Total, $312,000. To pay it, my parents had to sell the house, the one I'd been paying the mortgage on for 7 years. They netted $340,000 from the sale after paying off what remained of the actual mortgage. The court took $312,000 immediately. They were left with $28,000 to split between them. Marcus had to sell his boat to cover his portion of the fraudulent auto loan. Jennifer had quietly settled with me for $40,000 to avoid being charged as an accessory. She'd known about the medical credit line and had benefited from it. My family was financially destroyed, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not revenge. Not even sadness anymore. Just a profound sense of peace. I'd spent 7 years being invisible, being dismissed, being pitted while I held up an entire family structure. 7 years of watching them take credit for a success I was funding. 7 years of being called a freeloader while transferring $750,000 into their accounts. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. My career continued to thrive. I accepted a position as VP of Data Architecture at a major tech firm, $385,000 base salary, plus equity, plus bonuses. I was finally able to buy the home I wanted, drive the car I wanted, live the life I'd been subsidizing for others. Aunt Linda called me last week. She'd been at the barbecue, heard everything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she said. I had no idea what you were doing for them.
What they were doing to you.
Nobody did, I said. Your father keeps writing letters from prison, asking family members to help with commissary money, to visit, to support your mother. And nobody's responding. Once everyone found out the truth, they all just disappeared. I didn't respond. Sarah, Aunt Linda said carefully, do you think you'll ever forgive them? I looked out at the city lights stretching below my condo. I don't think about them enough to need to forgive them, I said finally. They're just people I used to know who made terrible choices. I hung up. The next day, I got a letter from Mom. It was forwarded through my attorney. I'd made it clear I wanted no direct contact. The letter was 7 pages of apologies, explanations, justifications. How they didn't realize what they were doing was wrong. How they just thought I was being generous. How they never meant to hurt me. How families should stick together. I read it once. Then I shredded it. Because here's what I'd learned. You can't steal $189,000 from someone by accident. You can't forge someone's signature without realizing. You can't destroy someone's credit out of love. You make choices. And choices have consequences. They chose to steal from me while calling me a freeloader. I chose to stop being invisible. And now they were living with the consequences of underestimating the daughter they pitted. The forensic accountant, Patricia, became a good friend. We get coffee once a month. She still can't believe they went 7 years without questioning where the money came from. The cognitive dissonance must have been incredible, she said at our last meeting. How do you accept $720,000 in support while convincing yourself the person giving it is a freeloader? Easy, I said. You just decide you deserve it. You decide you're owed it. You decide their success is actually yours somehow. She shook her head. What are you going to do with the settlement money? I smiled. I donated it. You what? All $312,000. To a nonprofit that helps young people recover from financial abuse by family members. Tax-deductible contribution. Already processed. Patricia laughed. You're incredible. No, I said. I'm just not interested in their money. I never was. I just wanted them to stop taking mine. Last week, I got a friend request on LinkedIn from Dad's former business partner, Robert Chen, the one who'd asked what kind of computer work I did. His message was simple. I'm sorry I didn't see who you really were. Your strength is remarkable. If you're ever looking for board positions or advisory roles, I'd be honored to discuss opportunities. I accepted the request. Because that's the thing about being invisible. Eventually, if you step into the light on your own terms, people see you for who you really are. Not who they assumed you were. Not who they needed you to be. Not who they pitted or dismissed or underestimated. Just you. And sometimes, that's the best revenge of all.